1. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot for you to tune in on Apple, Spotify, and of course YouTube. It means the world to me. And you join me with another fantastic guest, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome onto the show West End and TV extraordinaire, Mr. Deka Walmsley. Deka is an actor who's worked across film, TV, and theatre. Across film, he's worked in films such as The Banquet. For TV, he's appeared in The Bastard Son and The Devil Himself for Netflix, The Thief, His Wife in the Canoe for ITV, Vera for ITV, Nature Boy, and Dirty War. And for the theatre, he has appeared in Blood Brothers, produced by Everton chairman Bill Kenwright, Macbeth for the National Theatre, Fisherman's Friends, the musical, the Pitman Painters, UK and Broadway, Cyrano de Bergerac, and The Importance of Being Earnest, and one role in particular we're going to talk a lot about today, which is Billy's dad, Jackie Elliot, in Billy Elliot at the musical at the Victoria Palace Theatre. Music by Elton John, lyrics by Lee Hall, and directed by the great Stephen Daldry. And for any of you who wants to see Deka's performance as Billy's dad, you'll be able to catch it on demand as well as on DVD right now. So go to Amazon and buy yourself that musical, is one of the most fantastic performances and musicals you will ever see, and I cannot recommend it enough. So enough from me. Deka, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. I'd forgotten half of those plays.
And that's just the summary. Your CV is just like piled with credits. I mean, it's that's a sort of like, how am I going to fit all this in? So I managed to tone it all down and stuff. But it's an impressive amount of work you've got there. You must be very proud of everything you've done so far.
Do you know what? I am, yeah. We've been doing I've been doing a long time, about 30-something years.
Yeah.
So there's, I've been lucky enough to work for most of it. And so there's a lot of players in there. And then the sort of second half of the career, a lot more telly, really. But yeah, a lot of players. I dread to think how many.
Which one do you prefer? TV or theatre? Well, I suppose we love both of them.
It's not really a competition, really. Theatre.
Yeah.
Away. I like TV. It's great. It used to be that it was a lot. The kind of the peer differential was huge. It still is, really.
Yeah, of course.
But I love being in a room full of actors working stuff out. It's really creatively fulfilling, but it's also a really good laugh, if I'm honest.
Hugely.
And I miss that. I miss having to get to know people very quickly and trust people very quickly, and the kind of joy and the kind of fun that brings, So yeah, theatre is the one for me. It's just sometimes it's not well enough paid to do it all year round,
Yeah. I think Derek Jacobi said he's never known a rich theatre actor. never known.
No. I've known a lot of happy ones.
But, yeah.
I was talking about this to an actor called Joe Caffrey, who I kind of started my career with, and who is still a very good mate. We did a lot of plays together in the Northeast when we first started, and we just because we were I think we were both moaning about work, as actors like to do, and we kind of reminding each other of how happy we were at Live Theatre in Newcastle, doing plays back to back again and again that probably no casting director was ever going to see, but they were brilliant plays with brilliant actors. It was really kind of spiritually quite fulfilling,
Yeah, fantastic. Of course, and you're from the Newcastle territory as well, because I remember asking you just before we came on, I was like, where exactly are you from? Because I've seen you play Billy's dad, in Newcastle. I've seen you do a London accent. You said you're actually from Tyneside or that area.
I'm from a place called Walmsley, which is about 5 miles east of Newcastle. It used to be a big shipbuilding town, but not anymore, obviously. And then I kind of grew up there, but I went to drama school down here in London. Went back to Newcastle to start my career at Live Theatre. Worked there for a long time, worked in Northern Stage and places like that. And then I like a lot of actors, I don't know, I graduated towards London because I used to hate that conversation with my agent would say, "Can you be in Soho tomorrow at 11:15?" And then panic about train times, and and you'd get there and you'd go to Soho and you are there for about 10 minutes, and they go, "Yes, thanks very much, goodbye."
Mm.
You get back on a train, and in the end, I just thought it had to be easier
Mm.
to live here,
Yeah.
I love London. I absolutely love living here.
No, it's a good place. It's the hub of everything that goes on in a way, which is great. So I have a starter question for every guest that comes on the show, which is, if I start at the beginning of the journey. So for you, Deka, where did the love of acting start for you? Where did it all come from?
Youth Wars and Young People's Theatre, which was a youth theatre
Mm.
with a kind of open door policy. Anyone could go. Nobody wanted to be an actor. All the people who went there, sort of 14, 15, 16, 17, just it was like a youth club, but instead of playing table tennis or whatever,
Mm.
you made up plays and put them on, and it was just the joy of it, and the crack and mucking around with your mates. But it had a succession of brilliant people who led the sessions for no money at all.
Mm.
Spike Hill, Ronnie Castillo, Steve Chambers, in my time, and it was just the most joyous experience with other people my age mucking about doing plays. Lee Hall was there, Trevor Fox was there, Joe Caffrey was there. It was just, and these are all people who I still work with now, as professional actors. So it was that made me think, do you know what? As much fun as it is, I think I could do this as a job,
Mm.
And it made me, Trevor Fox, who's my best mate, got into a drama school. And I thought if he could do it, I could do it. And so I auditioned and got in to the same drama school as him, which was brilliant because it meant that moving down to London to a drama school, you at least had one person who you knew, who you could find sanctuary in if you found the world all a bit big and strange, which I think we both did for a while.
Yeah, fantastic. So what was your experience of drama school like? What did you learn over those 3 years?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure what I learned technically. I think this might do the drama school a bit of disservice, but this was a long time ago. I went there in 1985. That's how long ago it was. But I think I learned most things just by doing, rather than any kind of technical mystery that was passed on to me. I think I learned stagecraft just by doing plays. And you did plays back to back to back to back. And of course, you had voice classes and you had movement classes, and they probably were really helpful. But I think I learned most just by being cast in plays that you would never get cast in professionally, and wandering around a stage, and a director occasionally going, "It's good, but it would be better if you were there," and learning how that worked. And I think by the time I came to the third year, I sort of had I probably knew nothing, but I felt as if I had a certain understanding of what worked on stage. So yeah. I mean, it was a confidence thing, really. That's what I learned: the confidence to give things a go and not be scared.
Yeah,
which was invaluable.
Yeah. What would you say was your favorite play that you did across your 3 years?
Oh, blimey. Well, what was hilarious is I spent 3 years trying to learn RP and being very self-conscious about being a Geordie and not being able to play anything that was vaguely neutral without sounding like Prince Charles. And everybody sort of having a laugh at my expense because of it. And then when it came to the end of the third year, you do final productions in a theatre in the middle of London, and they chose a Geordie play, which I knew very well. It was a play called Bandits by Cecil Taylor.
Okay.
And there's an amazing character in it called Ray. and I got cast as that, which was just like, I couldn't have asked for anything better. It was and so I really enjoyed that, because I really enjoyed the schadenfreude of the people I'd spent 3 years with coming up to us in rehearsal and saying, "Deka, how would you say that?" And basically, let's off and find out. So I enjoyed that. And also a really grim play called Jean-Claude or Jean-Paul Grunberg play called The Workshop. But mainly I enjoyed that play because we had an amazing outside director called Pavel Dangle, who was just brilliant. And he was really helpful at the notes he gave were absolutely fantastic. He gave you notes that you would never have thought about. And they were really, really eye-opening about, resisting the condition. These things might not be anything, but resisting the condition and finding different ways to play things. And he was very specific. And I learned a lot from him, actually.
Yeah. What sort of notes would he give? Like, apart from like feel the resistance and
well, no. But he would say, you would read speeches in rehearsal and you'd think, about characters talking about very emotional things, and because I was very young, you thought it meant that you had to display that emotion, whereas actually the heartbreaking and the more interesting thing to do was to try not to.
Yeah.
And he would say, do the speech as if it's funny, and you would read it and go, but it doesn't sound very funny. He said, but a human being might say those words trying not to get upset, and therefore use humor to try and prevent himself getting upset. And it was just a really and I can't even remember how I ended up playing it, but I just remember finding that a really fascinating and eye-opening way of looking at something, not to go for the obvious thing. And I think they call it resisting the condition, which is if the character it's like playing drunk people. Drunk people want to walk straight. That's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to fall over. And it's the same emotionally. People quite often who are very distraught about something are trying not to show it,
Yeah, no, I get it entirely. It's funny when I got caught in the trap myself of trying to read emotional stuff and like, you've got to show it. But then, I think if you show too much without really knowing what you're saying, you just look a bit silly,
or resist it until you can't resist it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So let's jump into sort of one of your main parts that you've done across your career, playing Jackie Elliot at the Victoria Palace Theatre in London's West End. Sadly, the production isn't there anymore. It's been replaced by some musical. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Hamilton. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
Not very successful, are you?
No. It's just doing okay. It's picked up a few tickets, but but yeah. So you mentioned Lee Hall earlier. You've known. It sounds like you've known him for a long time. Who wrote the film and also wrote the script for the play. Before we sort of jump into Jackie Elliot, who is I think it's a fantastic role. But Lee Hall, what's he like to work with and stuff? Because I admire his work enormously.
He's everything you could wish for. He's just a very generous, very humble, very intelligent man, and very supportive. And we sort of get each other because we kind of came from the same background. He was part of that youth theatre that used to muck around and write plays, and so we have a shorthand, a kind of emotional shorthand with each other. And it makes me understand he's right. I get he's writing very quickly. So he's like I say, he's very encouraging and very supportive, and he was very thrilled when the job came up and I went for it and got it. He was the first person to let me know I'd got it on the sly.
Wow.
I think he rang me on the train and said they're going to offer it to you tomorrow, but I didn't tell you that.
Yeah, you didn't hear that from me.
Yeah, exactly.
But just quick before we jump into Jackie Elliot, for anyone who doesn't know, Billy Elliot it's a film and also it's a musical about a young boy called Billy Elliot who grows up in Newcastle in Tyneside, and his dad Jackie Elliot and his brother Michael, his friend Michael, his brother Tony, They join the mining society and they go out on strike, and this is all based around the Thatcher years, about how she created so much discontent in the north of England whilst giving prosperity to the south. And it's a story how Billy doesn't follow the original trend of going into the mines. He discovers he wants to be a dancer, and at first his dad Jackie is resistant to it. And as the story goes on, his dad becomes more aware of Billy's talents, and that's all I'll say. No, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But feel free to talk about it as much as you want, Deka, please. So, in your opinion, who is Jackie Elliot to you? How did you discover him, and how would you sum him up?
I think he's probably. I mean, I would sum him up in the play anyway as a bloke who's forgotten how to love his son. I think that's the most helpful thing for me when I start rehearsing, and the kind of task you set yourself is, how can I find a way back to understanding and connecting with my son. I mean, what Lee does brilliant is he sets up a huge series of obstacles for Jackie, which is they're on strike. His wife has died. He's lost without her, and as a result, he becomes sort of emotionally inarticulate. So he doesn't know how to relate to the kid, or to anybody really, but the kid and to Tony. So Jackie has so many obstacles to overcome to get to that point at the end. Yeah. When what happens, I mean, you talk about spoiling it for people, but yeah, it's just he puts a huge set of obstacles in front of Jackie, who's a fairly typical working class bloke who lives in a very loving but a very troubled community during the miners' strike. And it's about, as an actor, it's about finding ways for a character to overcome those hurdles,
Yeah. And of course, as you mentioned there, of course, the miners' strike and everything. If it's okay to ask, how aware of those events were you growing up in Newcastle? Were they?
Yeah, I was very aware. I was 19. I was fairly political. And I also had this bizarre connection to it where my dad used to be a sound recordist for the local news. And he would be sent out with the film crew to go and film it for news items. So there'd be picket lines and stuff like that. And I think my dad wasn't the most sympathetic to the strike, whereas I was. And my dad would, because they would, he'd come home and say, "Oh, they were spitting on me and they were throwing bricks at us," and I would say, "Well, you only ever go and film them when there's trouble. You don't film them when there's not trouble." So you can understand why they might be a little bit upset, because the portrayal of them is that they're all thugs. So I was very aware of it, and in the house, it became fairly a topic for discontent, shall we say. But yes, I was very aware of it. I was very sympathetic to the miners' strike. I mean, I was naive as well, I think, probably. I was probably a very naive 18, 19-year-old. But I was definitely, I like what Stephen Daldry said once, which was, I think it was Daldry said something about, the Billy Elliot shows both sides. It shows it from the miners' side and the side of the miners' wives.
Yeah, it does.
Which I thought was a really good.
Fantastic. So, what was it like, Newcastle, like as a place, the impact it had on the communities and stuff? What was it like growing up?
On the mining communities? Oh my God! Well, it was disastrous. I mean, it was just absolutely disastrous, because that was. It's like Wallsend was a shipbuilding town, and it's the same thing had happened in the shipyards. And Wallsend was a big town compared to some of the mining villages. I mean, the mining towns like Easington, which is in County Durham, where Billy was set, they're small places, and everything is centered around the fact that the employment comes from the mine. And you take that away, and there's nothing there. All those mining villages in Northumberland, you take those jobs away, there is nothing there. And so it was, you know, people have a very different takes on the miners' strike, but I think what was fundamental is they were fighting for not for more money. They were fighting for their livelihoods and their communities, because without them, which we saw when they had to go, when they went to work, and then eventually those mines were closed, places were destroyed. You know, which is what it says in the play, in the Christmas song, "Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher." It says, you know, they're going to change the terms and conditions and turn them into business parks because it's cheaper, and you employ fewer people. And that's exactly what happened, you know. So I was very sympathetic towards it, and like I say, it had a devastating effect. And anyone that was involved in that strike, it has marked their life forever. You know.
So was that conversations like this? Was that in the rehearsal room a lot when you started? Did you bring in pictures?
Yeah. But I mean, I wasn't in the rehearsal room when it began. I don't know what the rehearsals were like.
Of course. Sorry.
So it's slightly different in that I took over from somebody. So the rehearsals, and you don't get long. The rehearsals are about, you know, I think the assumption is that you're bright enough as an actor and as a human being to know what it's about, and to know the background to it. And what you need to do is learn a lot of songs and a lot of dancing and a lot of acted scenes very quickly. So I'd love to say yes. Normally, when you originate a play, yes, of course, those conversations are had. And when you take over something, you know, you talk about it, but it's more about getting on with it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So how long rehearsal period did you have?
It was about 5 weeks, 6, maybe 5. Yeah, because there was quite a big cast change when I joined. The Mrs. Wilkinson was new, the Tony was new, I was new. There were 2 new Billies rehearsing at the same time. So I think that was quite a big changeover. So I think it was about 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
What I learned from being there for a long time is the poor lads and lasses who were in the ensemble, who were doing the show in the evening, and used to have to come to rehearsals during the day. You know, as brilliant as they were with me, and they were brilliant, it's knackering because you're rehearsing during the day and doing the show at night, and the show is not an easy show to do.
No, it's huge.
So I think the core company who was staying on used to look at re-rehearsals in a very unfavourable way. Not unprofessional, obviously.
I could see them sort of getting to the end of a tough rehearsal day going, "Oh, well, that was pretty tough. I'll go home and make dinner now." But no.
I'll just go and do another 3 hours.
You've got to do it all again now. Get in the theatre.
100 miles an hour.
Exactly. So across those 5 weeks, you know, I think it's fair to say that's a decent amount of rehearsal. I know there's a lot to sort of, you know, remember those songs, dancing, acting, etc. But what was your journey with Jack? I know you've talked about like who he was to yourself, but across those 5 weeks, how did you get Jackie like in your head and in your body? How did he come about?
Well, oh God, that's such a hard question to answer without sounding pretentious. You know, I mean, I don't know is the answer. It's such a kind of organic process. I think, you know, like I say, I've done this for a long time. So I don't know is the answer. You trust what's written down in front of you.
Of course.
You just react to the script and to what the other actor gives you. I mean, the thing is that also there are parameters when you take over a job. It's all very well you having these amazing ideas and things like that. And it's not that that the director wasn't open to it. Of course they were. And they were very encouraging. But they kind of need you to go to do all of the ideas that you have and do it in this space, the way that it's lit, the way that we've always done it. And that's not to say you don't get a free hand. You do, and they're very understanding of that. But it's a kind of it's a trade-off in a way. You have to kind of take on some of the way that it's already been set up and bring what you can that's new to that. And I just fought for moments that I thought were really interesting and crucial, and maybe that they hadn't seen as being that interesting or crucial, and moments that I didn't understand, they made me understand. So it's just a give and take process. You know, you find scenes that some scenes that you thought you understood, maybe they found a way of saying, well, isn't it about this? And you go, oh my God, it is about that. And then hopefully sometimes you go, but isn't this moment about this? And they let you play that. I used to love the moment when he goes to Mrs. Wilkinson's door, when he's realised in the second half that he's going to let Billy go to the audition. And he goes and he says, how much is it going to cost them when it's snowing? I love that scene. It's a brilliantly written scene. But I think that scene is a really, really difficult scene for Jackie to play.
Yeah.
Because it's about him betraying his mates, the strike, everything that he believes in, because he wants to. It's such a tug of war between wanting to do the right thing for his son and the implications of doing that for who he is as a miner and a member of his community. It's such a brilliant scene.
Yeah.
Well, tooth and nail to rehearse that scene more and more and more and more. Yeah. Because I think that is a good key to Jackie Elliot, that scene.
Yeah. And I think another one, which is I think one of the scenes that my mum actually loves very much, because we saw it 3 times with you in the West End. We absolutely loved it. Is the so that this standoff song between Jackie and Tony, when he says, I can't take it anymore, son, it's tearing me apart, we're lost, we're finished. And you know, there's that battle between his 2 sons. One is saying, Dad, we can't give up. But on the other hand, you're saying, look, but my son could be a star and we've got to give him a chance. You know, I mean, that was a beautiful to watch. And I can't imagine the tug of war as well.
That's a thing in rehearsals that I think, I'm not sure they've done it before, but I really like the idea that it's a fight.
Yeah.
You know, that it's a physical fight. And it might be that I'm completely wrong in this and I'll make a fool of myself. But I think before it was about 2 people singing at each other.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, we can do that, but we can fight as well. And it just becoming a physical thing about, I want to go that way. And Tony saying, you can't go that way, you have to come back.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that because it's not the most melodic song. It's a very aggressive song. And I really liked putting those 2 things together. It is a brilliant, and it is, well, that's the turning point of the play, I think, for Jackie.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, when you've got music by Elton John, I mean, you're kind of in very safe hands in that sense as well.
Yeah. I never, when I was in the youth theatre when I was 16, 17, never thought I'd be standing on stage in the West End singing songs written by Elton John. That's for sure.
Crazy. Did he ever come to your rehearsal? Did he ever come and see you?
No, he came to see the show because I think it was the 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
While I was there, and he came to that, and he was very gracious and he was very good fun.
Yeah, amazing. And we talked about, you touched on the emotional demands of Jackie there, and you know, I have to say, the times that I've seen it, and of course it's on the DVD as well, you're one of those actors who brilliantly manages to get the tears out. You have a very good way of showing your emotion. You can turn the tears on in a way very well. It was brilliant to watch, and that's something I'm still learning how to do in a way. And but so with such a demanding thing, you know, 8 times a week, you know, how did you manage to keep that emotion there and fresh every time?
You don't, is the honest answer. I could, yes, well, I'm completely emotionally traumatized every night, but you're not. Well,
No.
I wasn't, and I don't think, I'm not sure how many actors, if they're honest, would say they are. Some nights you could always convey what you're meant to convey,
Yeah.
and some nights you do it better than others, but hopefully there's a kind of standard below which it doesn't go. Some nights you absolutely soar, and some nights you don't. But I mean, the other thing, I don't want to be too trite about it, is it's your job. That's what you're supposed to be good at.
Yeah.
Um, and I think my way into it has always been try to stop yourself from um, showing that emotion and see what happens. And sometimes you just have to trust that it will work. And sometimes it doesn't, but you find a way out of it, and you still try to be convincing. But I think it is about trying, because I think I met a bloke once. This is a bit of a side story, but I met a bloke once, and he'd had a big tragedy in his life. Somebody had died,
Yeah.
and he was trying to find out more about what had happened. And the person who died lived next door to me, and he knocked on my door with a friend of his. And he was, at the time, I was in my 20s, and he was 60, 70-year-old. And he asked me if I'd seen anything about what had happened next door, and I didn't know anything about it. And he sat on my sofa, and he tried desperately to ask me questions, but was on the verge of tears every time he asked me a question. But he would force the question out of his mouth to stop himself crying. And I've always remembered it. I've always remembered it about how sorry I felt for him, but always also how fascinating it was. And I don't mean that I'm not exploiting his grief. I just
No,
mean
of course
it
not.
was absolutely fascinating to see somebody trying not to let emotions out. And it was far more upsetting than if he just sat there and wailed,
Yeah.
Then I would have known what to do. I
Yeah.
could have put my arm around him and said, it's all right, it's going to be fine. But it slightly disconcerts you when somebody says, no, I will get this out. I
Yeah.
will. And it's really odd. So I've always remembered that. And I think that's what I always tried to do with Jackie, was try to get through moments and not show stuff, but trust that it was well written enough and well directed enough that you wouldn't be able to stop it.
Yeah.
In the effort of trying to stop it is what makes it so emotional for the audience, I think.
Yeah. And I think a very good example of that is the song that Jackie has in Act 2 following Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher, when he sings about his wife and everything, the old Westall song that he sings, the winter winds could blow me colder. Yeah. I mean, that the way you did that, I thought was fantastic. It was a really beautiful way of showing someone who, exactly as you said, you could see everything you wanted to hold in, but we could just see that there was a world going on inside here, even though you were trying to keep it all together on the outside.
Yeah, the director used to say it's not a folk song, it's about blood and death.
Yeah.
And he's right, it is, I mean, the words are
yeah,
about death and being put on the ground and family and
yeah,
it's you just used to find a trigger line, and quite often it was about I think it's in the last verse. He says she was only 37 when they took her down from me. He's thinking about his wife, and it was something about the age. 37 is, and I always remember the first time I did it. My voice kind of in rehearsals, I couldn't get the word 37 out.
wow.
And eventually in rehearsal, because I found it very distressing in rehearsals singing that song.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would barely get through the first verse without crying. And the director used to let me go and he used to let me cry. And then eventually he said, Deka, you're going to have to get through more of it before you stop. And I said, well, I'm not acting. It's just literally upsetting me so much because it's such an upsetting. So it took me a while to kind of become hardened to it, I think.
Yeah. I suppose when you comes like the end of an 8-show week, and say, I'm sure you had this where you had 8 shows where the emotion really hit.
I've got to stop you and be honest. I used to do 7. I was very jammy. I used to get 1 show off a week before I could start going, I'll work with him. He didn't do 8 shows a week.
Okay, so 7 shows. Say if you all the shows you did in 1 week, and you hit, if you hit all of them every night, and as you say, it chokes you up, and it's all about the work rather than sort of becoming emotionally traumatized every night. But if you had a successful week of getting all those emotions there, how do you shake it off, say on your day off?
You don't think much about Billy Elliot. You don't think much about being an actor, and also I'm lucky in that I was at an age that I was when I did it, because it's not that I don't take my job seriously, but I know that it's a job. I take my job really seriously.
Of course.
But I know it's pretend, I know it's a job, and I know that I can switch off quite easily. And I have many other things in my life that bring me joy and are nothing to do with theatre. And I tend to concentrate on those. I've got kids and a lovely partner and things like that. And, it's just life takes over, and you just need to, it's not that I don't take my job seriously. I do, but you just say, I'm not at work now. And you learn over years. I don't think I could have done that when I was 23, 24. It would have been all consuming. But you just learned from doing it, that you would end up like a frazzled stick if you took it home with you every night. It's just, life's too short for that. And it doesn't make you a better actor. It makes you a worse actor, I think.
Yeah. No, never heard of it that way. Yeah. Because it's important of shaking it off helps you better. Yeah.
Because you need to have clarity about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you take everything home with you all the time and live it when you're not doing it, I think you're going to be exhausted, and physically you won't be able to produce your best work. Mentally you'll be exhausted and you won't be able to produce your best work because you won't be clear. You need clarity. You need to be able to approach something clearly. In order to, I do. Other actors might be very different. I don't know. And if they are, and it works for them, good luck. But I know for me, I achieve the best things when I'm not tired, when I'm sort of clear in my head, and I have energy, and I have time away from the thing that is my job.
And that's great. And I think also on top of that, the rewards I suppose you get from the audience reaction that you got pretty much every time you did it. I remember the 3 times I saw it, everyone was up on their feet applauding. You must have got a standing ovation every night by the looks of things.
I'm not gonna lie, it's lovely. It's really it's a really rewarding feeling for people to say, well, it's just a validation of the work that you've put in. Everyone has put in. I mean, I used to say in interviews when I was doing Billy Elliot, I mean, as hard as it was to do Jackie, I wasn't doing what the kids were doing. I mean, the kids who were playing Michael or Debbie or, the ballet girls or and most importantly, Billy, were just unbelievable. I mean, to cope with the situation at that age is unbelievable. To be that good at it at that age is unbelievable, and just physically, the work that they put in is astonishing. And so, if any of the grown-ups used to moan, I always used to think, have you seen what that 12-year-old kid's doing? And he's not moaning.
No. I mean, of course you had, was it 3 different Billies to work with every week or something like that?
I think they were only allowed to do 2 shows a week. Yeah, so 3,
3, so is it different with each Billy, or is it?
They were very different because they're different people, I mean, again, there are parameters that they have to work within, but they play moments very differently. And so I used to enjoy different scenes I used to have favourite scenes with favourite Billies, you know. But it might be that one scene I used to think, oh, I like that scene with that Billy, but I like that scene with the other Billy. Do you know? And they were great, and you learn from them as well. You know, some of them because they don't complicate things because of their age. They sometimes do things so beautifully simply that you think, what, blimey, that's the answer. And there's you know, giving it a 5-act opera in a, you know, in a very simple moment when you don't need to, which I'm really guilty of at times as an actor. And then you see one of the Billies just do something so simple, and it breaks your heart, you know, and so you learn from them all the time.
Yeah. And I think there's one scene in particular, I think, slight spoiler for anyone listening. So if anyone doesn't want to hear this, mute your audio now. There's a scene in the second act which shows Billy and his future self, and Swan Lake is ringing out across the theater, and Jackie and yourself walked in at the end, and you sort of get a glimpse of what Billy is capable of. I said that scene in particular, that moment really is. I mean, the whole show is stunning from start to finish, but that scene really sticks out. What was it like seeing 3 variations of that each time?
Well, it was just a privilege, really. I mean, I think, are you talking about electricity?
Well, but there's 2. There's electricity, and then there's future, but there's young Billy and old Billy, where they have that duet. Well, I suppose with Jackie's actually present for electricity, isn't he? So
yeah, that's what I thought you meant. It's so long.
Oh yeah, well we'll talk about that. Talk about electricity, yeah.
But that, I mean, it's the same thing, really.
Yeah.
It's the same moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like as an actor, it was a privilege to just sit down on a chair in the middle of the stage and have this amazing dance go on around you. So it's brilliant, and it's brilliant to see a kid and whoever was playing older Billy as well. Let's not forget how brilliant they were. Dance this duet. It's absolutely incredible. But there's nothing better for a character as well to see his son doing that. You know, it's just to imagine that your son is capable of doing that when you could never have dreamed that was the case.
Yeah.
It's astonishing, and it always struck me as the reaction at the end of it was very much like, I used to relate it to somebody watching football, you know, because that's maybe the only kind of way that he could understand it, of that release of a goal going in when he sees his son, when that music boom finishes like that, and Jackie's like, bang, you know, and he's out in his chair. It was yeah, that was a great. I used to love that moment.
Yeah.
But again, and all 3 of them were. It didn't really matter who was doing it. It was always just a pleasure. And again, being honest as an actor, it meant I got to sit down for about 3 minutes and not do anything other than watch. It was perfect.
Fantastic. So, how would you sort of sum up being part of one of the greatest musicals, I think, of all time? And of course, you'll be remembered eternally as Billy's dad from the West End, because he's on DVD and be able to stream on.
I would like to take my hat off to all the other Billy's dads, because I know quite a few of them, and they were all also brilliant. I was just looking to be the one who did the DVD, but no, I had a brilliant time. I loved being part of that family of actors and singers and dancers. I loved the kids. I thought they were absolutely inspiring. And I was really pleased to be part of something that Lee had written that was that successful and that brilliantly written. I was very, very, very fortunate. It was a very happy time in my life. You know, I'm just grateful and privileged, I think, is the all round.
Yeah. Fantastic. I just got a couple of questions about you, just moving away from theatre just for a second, for your work on TV and stuff. Just been thinking about how, you're in the theatre, it's quite intense for that period of time, but you're in there for that moment. Whereas with TV, you know, like there's so many breaks, there's a lot of waiting around, there's a lot of, you know, waiting to do. And I think if you're playing someone whose scenes are late in the day, but you're on set for like 9 in the morning, how do you sort of like to keep your character in check when you've got a lot of waiting time?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, I mean, you don't. But I don't. I just don't. I'd love to say, yeah, I do this and I do this. And I don't, because I'm not sure how I could.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, if you're called at 7 in the morning and you don't end up filming until, I don't know, 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Well, my maths is rubbish, but that's 9 hours of sitting in a caravan.
Mm.
And I don't know what you're going to do for 9 hours that's going to help you to produce a better performance, but in terms of thinking about your character, or you know, I don't. I know my lines. I know roughly, you know, what I think it's about. I mean, telly is so very different, especially at my level. I mean, I don't do massive parts in television. I'm a job and actor on television.
Mm.
I've done great things in theatre, but on television, you know, it's great and I really enjoy it and it's decent. But I think I learn my lines. I know technically how to do what it is I'm supposed to do, and I know the story. And then you have to just be able to turn it on and turn it off, because you do it, you know, umpteen times for different camera angles, for different shots, for different sizes shots, and it's about being able to identify which shot they're going to use. To work out how you manipulate that to convey what it is that needs to be conveyed. I mean, it is a very strange process. I enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it anywhere near as much as I enjoy rehearsing in theatre.
Yeah, there's that energy which you can't really get with TV, can you? There's
and it's a sense of teamwork, really. I mean, I know you're part of a team on a film set.
Yeah.
But it's so much more tangible in a rehearsal room. Because you are with the same people all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel as if there's so much more a sense of setting out on a voyage together in a theatre rehearsal room. Whereas, you know, I don't know who the focus puller is, or the editor you never meet. And you have a relationship with the first AD and the second AD and the director and a producer every now and then, and the other actors. Do you know what I mean? And I think also you are slightly loaded a bit on a film set or a TV set. You know, you're very looked after and very cosseted, while other people do their work around you. And I don't particularly enjoy that. You know, it's very nice to get picked up in a car and all those things, but I quite like the egalitarian part of a rehearsal room where you go in the morning and everyone just goes heads down, let's go. You know, I really like that feeling.
Yeah. And how long has singing and dancing been in your canon? Is it something you've shown off a lot?
You know what? It's not. It's not in my canon at all. I would never.
In your canon. I've seen you do it.
I've done it, so it is in that sense. But I'm never going to be put up a West Side Story. I can't sing like that. Yeah. You know, I'm not gonna.
I mean, either.
I'm not going to go up for big singing and dancing musicals because I'm not confident. I'm not comfortable going into an audition and doing that. I can't sell a song and sing like that. I can sing in the way, you know, like, I don't know what the technical term for it is. No, I felt fine singing in Billy Elliot, character-driven songs about material that I was very familiar with. But whenever I've gone for musicals that are more traditional musicals, I've always felt uncomfortable. And I can't, you know, I can't tap dance to save my life. I can make it look like I can, but I can't. And movement is fine. That I'm comfortable with. And dancing, I'll get there eventually, but I'm slow. But once I get it, I get it. And the singing's a bit like that as well. But listen, I work with singing, you know, in Billy Elliot, there are singers who can just that, you know what I mean? They hear it once, they belt it out, and it sounds staggering. I've never been able to do that.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's plenty of time left for you, man. I'm sure.
It's awesome.
No, of course there is. Loads of time, man. So just quickly go back to Billy Elliot just for 1 second. I just thought of this question. What was your, we talked earlier about the relationship between Billy and Tony, and two very contrasting relationships you had with both of that Jackie has with both of his sons. How would you describe sort of the dynamic between not choosing one or the other, but the huge differences between the relationships you had with both of your sons on stage?
Well, I think probably Jackie was probably very like Tony when he was younger,
Yeah.
which is why I think, as an older person, he thinks he's a bit of a hothead and an idiot.
Yeah.
He will not listen, and that's a very familiar family trope, I think. Don't do as I do as I say. But all you have to go on, and I can imagine and I can assume as much as I want, but all you have to go on is the 2 or 3 scenes that are in there and what they say to each other in those scenes, and what they used to call the hammer scene, which is the scene when Billy's up. When Jackie's awake during the night and Tony comes down the stairs and he's off somewhere and he's got a hammer in his hand, and Jackie says, "Where are you going with that?" And Tony's saying, "Nowhere, mind your own business, whatever it is." And he says, "Put it back." He doesn't want him to get into trouble. He doesn't want him to do the wrong thing. And he probably doesn't want it to happen because he loves him and he cares about him. But he couldn't say that. He could say, "You're being an idiot, you're going to get into trouble and you're not going to help the strike at all." So there's that kind of, I think Jackie is kind of, because he's older and world weary and he's seen it before, I think he finds it hard to connect to somebody who is angry and militant in the way that Tony is. And that really creates that tension between them. Whereas with Billy, it's just, I think it's more interesting to me for Jackie, the relationship with Billy, because he never gives him a chance, because he doesn't know how to, because he's grieving. So it's just about shut up, sit down, say there, do this, do that. Never allows him a minute to express himself. It's all just about, come here, eat your breakfast, do this, get out the door. Practicalities, of being in charge of a young kid that he doesn't know how to be in charge of. And that's where that tension comes from later, because he realizes that he's never given him a shot. And he's never given him the time of day. And it's the ballet teacher, Mrs. Wilkinson, who does what the dad should have been able to do emotionally, which is to spot something in him and see a kind of an inquisitiveness in his son that he never sees, because the only way he can cope with life is to deal in, eat your breakfast, get out the door, get to school, get to boxing, do that. It's really sad, but that's the brilliant thing about this journey of the play, is that at the end of the play, spoiler alert, like you said, if you don't want to know, especially, but the best moment for me was always, and I used to make the Billies rehearse it with us until they hated us, was when they're packing the suitcase and then Billy runs up to him and he jumps on him and they cuddle. And I used to say to the Billies, "You have to get it right. You have to hit my chest so hard when you jump that you hear that oomph." That you hear that, because in that is everything. That moment is everything about, "I'm really sorry that I let you down, kid, but from now on, we're going to be all right," and it's all in that tiny moment. To me, director might say that's a pilot, rubbish, but I don't care. To me, that's what it was about, that connection, physical connection.
Yeah, and there's such a big contrast to your reaction when you see Billy for the first time in that dance class at the end of the song "Solidarity," which was one of my favorite songs in the whole show. I think the way it was staged, everything was fantastic.
It's genius.
It's pure genius, absolutely genius.
There's like four stories going through that at once, but probably more. But the coppers and the miners and the ballet teacher and the girls, and Billy and his dad, and the way they all interact with each other. I mean, the ballet girl's sitting on my knee, when doing that, while we're having a conversation. It's a brilliant bit of theatre.
Yeah.
It's Peter Doll and Daldry are absolute. I mean, where that comes from, I do not know.
Yeah, it's like when you rehearse that, I was just quickly about the whole dancing routine. When you've got so many things to think about, like, okay, so in this moment I have to be here, then I'm going to be over there. Then you like solidarity, I think, is a very good example of like you have to be in so many different places all at once and do so many different things. Like, how do you? I know it's just a case of rehearsing it and knowing exactly where you need to be, but
you get it wrong a lot.
How do you plan it out up here? How do you go into that every night?
Well, I mean, I didn't have to, because I mean, to be honest, this is why I'm not a song and dance person. The most complicated that song is for me is having a conversation with George when George is saying, why isn't your son coming to boxing? And me saying, well, what do you mean he's not coming to boxing? And he says, well, he hasn't been there. And while we're doing that, I'm doing twirlies with a little ballet girl sitting on my knee and doing this. That took me so long. And that's the most complicated thing I do.
Yeah.
And the lads in the ensemble who just look at us and go, Deka, what are you doing? And I would get that wrong so many times in rehearsals because it's this, And then when you watch what they do in the line with the chairs and the it's called the Twitchers line, all of that stuff. And they've got a million things to think about, and I've got 3, and I managed to get that wrong time and time and time again in rehearsal. But once it clicks, once it clicks, I can make it look as I can play a dialogue scene as if this isn't happening.
Yeah,
and this is a surreal other world. But that's what's brilliant about that song, is that so many things are happening while you're doing something physical, and it's not like nobody questions why has he got a ballet girl on his knee. You just accept it. Yeah. It's just a surreal amalgamation of things that tells a story about all the things that are happening in a community at any given time.
Yeah,
it's so theatrically brilliant.
It's just brilliant. And then at the end of it, you get this roar of emotion from Billy's dad going, what the hell do you think you're playing at? I mean,
well, imagine in the middle of a miners' strike, your son has been lying to you, and he hasn't been going to boxing, that you've been giving him 50p for. This is the other thing about money.
Yeah,
50p is 50p when you're skinned, and he's given him 50p to go to boxing, and he's been spending it on going to a ballet class, which is just like Martian language to Jackie. It's something that will not compute. And he stands there at the end of Solidarity for the last couple of seconds and watches them spinning around, twirling around, dancing brilliantly. And then,
but it's like, what?
Yeah. and then you're back into the realism of it, of what the is going on here. And the ballet, and telling the ballet teacher to shut up and dragging his kid around.
Yeah.
And being quite physical and aggressive with him, because he's angry and he doesn't understand. And, and that's what's so brilliant about that character, is that it takes so long to get that anger out and to let the kind of love back in, which is a great thing to play.
Yeah. I suppose when the play ends, and of course, again, sorry, spoiler, at the end of the film, there's a lovely moment where Billy's dad sees Billy in Swan Lake at the Theatre Royal Haymarket in London.
Yeah.
Just bursting with pride and everything. And that is definitely sort of alluded to in the musical as well. But what do you think, in your estimation, Jackie goes back to work in the mines. What do you think happens next with Jackie? What do you think that we don't see? What happens next?
Oh, what a great question! What a great question that I haven't got a great answer for. I'm
sure you do.
Well, you would. I mean, you can only hope. You can have a Hollywood answer, but I don't think it would be anyway accurate or appropriate. I suspect they get on with family life, but he learns very, very slowly to kind of listen a bit more, and to say, what you'd hope that he'd say to him, how was school? How was ballet school?
Yeah.
That was a good. But I bet you, he says you better be. Yeah, I bet he gives him a really hard time about working as hard as he can.
Mm.
And see, if you're not pulling your weight, son, you know you're in trouble. And suddenly he's giving his kid a hard. He treats him in exactly the same way, but with just a little hint of love and pride about what he's doing. But he will. I don't think he'd be soft on him. I'd be saying, "Well, if you haven't got the best part, why haven't you got the best part? Because you're not working hard enough, you lazy little bugger. Get back there and do it again." Do you know what I mean? I think he'd be the same bloke, but suddenly more understanding of what it is that his son has a gift for. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, my mum. I was the first person in my family to do anything like this. You know, and my mum, when she was alive, bless her, used to spend ages doing lines with us. If I was doing plays at Newcastle, even like, you know, when I didn't live there anymore, I'd go back and I'd stay with her, and she would do lines with us. And she was brutal, you know. She was really brutal about lines. She said, "It's not if, it's but. If it's not and, it's well. It's not so, it's because." You know. And she would just not let you get away with a thing. I said, "Man, it doesn't matter if the odd one." Yes, it bloody well does. If you're going to do it, you do it properly. And I think, I mean, I think he would be like that, you know. Don't let yourself down. Don't let me down. Make sure you're a brilliant ballet dancer.
Yeah, I could so see that. I could say that's such an accurate description. I mean, that's, you know, it sort of builds off something in when Billy first goes to London in the musical, and he actually comes out of the scene in front of the curtain when you're meeting one of the other dads, and he goes, "It's frightfully nerve-wracking, isn't it?" And you're going, "What?" I beg your pardon. What are you saying? And then he comes up and says, "Dad, I don't want to do any more. Change my. I'll just get back in there, you little git."
Yeah.
But that's perfect. I think it's a continuation of. Yeah, I could so see him doing that. So why
But
don't
it's
you play
that terrible hypocrisy, isn't it? About, you know, no son of mine is going to do that.
Yeah.
And then when he accepted he's going to do it, he says, "You better do better than anybody else."
Yeah.
Just what that, you know, you just get back in there and do your best.
Yeah, just get back in there.
But that, I mean, I don't know, because I've never been from anywhere else, but that always struck me as a very Geordie thing. And it might be a very universal thing, but I recognise it as a Geordie trope very, very clearly. Of I think whether this is true, I don't know, but there was a story about the Angel of the North and people in Newcastle being outraged that it cost £1 million. You know, and Anthony Gormley, if this is wrong, I'm sorry, Anthony Gormley, sort of saying, "Well, you know, if you don't like it, then I'll take it down. I'll put it in London." "Oh no, hold on, it's ours." You know, you know what I mean? The policy of you know, ballet is all for softies and all of that. Well, get in there and be the best softie in the world.
Yeah,
it's something I'm very, and it comes from a place of love. That's the thing. It might sound like excuse me, a very old-fashioned thing to say, but it comes from a deep well of loving his son, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like that's your hug in a way. Is that it might not be a physical hug, but it's like you say to Billy, just get back there and do it. You be the best softie or the best whatever it is you possibly can. And like I said, but that's your hug in a way. That's your way of saying to him, you know, I love you and I support you. Without saying I love you.
Like, don't let yourself down kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Don't let me down, you know.
Yeah.
It's also, and don't be showing up. I felt like that when I went to drama school. I was very, very anxious and nervous, and everybody seemed very posh, and everybody seemed very confident about what they were doing. Lee Hall said to us once when he went to Cambridge on a scholarship, you know, from a lad from Wallsend. He said he felt very small, like just physically quite small. And I recognised that as a feeling. I felt very small and insignificant, and as if everybody else belonged there and knew what they were doing. And of course they did. Of course they did. They were probably just as nervous and but I felt completely out of place. And it took a long time to realise that I had every right to be there and I was good at it, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's partly a chip on my shoulder, and a working class chip on your shoulder, and partly, you know, a class thing that you weren't expected to be good at those things if you were from Newcastle, you know, which is ridiculous.
No, it's rubbish. It's all rubbish. Yeah. But I want to see that sequel. I want to see that sequel. What happens next in Billy Elliot? I want to see it.
Tell him to write it. Tell him I'll be in it.
Oh yeah. I'll get on the phone to Lee now if you give me his number. But yeah, just two more questions about Billy Elliot, and then we just got one just to finish on today, Deka. Well, first of all, it's just kind of a quick fire one, really. If Billy Elliot comes back to the West End, the original one comes back, the musical comes back to the Victoria Palace, and Stephen Daldry phones you up and say, Deka, do you want to do it again? What would you say? Yeah. In a heartbeat.
Fair enough.
Yeah. In a heartbeat. Fantastic. And secondly, when the reaction you got at the end of the show, and we've already talked about this, I know, but when you saw that audience clapping for you, like when you went and take your stage, when you took your bow, wearing your what is it, the tutu, yeah, with your tap shoes on, coming at the end of such a really emotionally hard ending, then into lovely sort of joyful feelings after that, leaving the audience like in this lovely mood. What was it like seeing that reception for you each time you did it, or seeing everyone on their feet and just seeing like the reaction you got? Was it just a sense of, okay, job well done, or was it something a little bit more than that?
Well, it changed from night to night. I don't want to. The quick answer is yes, of course. It was really brilliant.
Yeah,
it was really satisfying and really heartwarming. That as a company of people, we could make people feel like that. And then some nights the show was absolutely magical and it flew. Some nights, and at the end of it, you felt so celebratory. And some nights, you know, it didn't fly and things kind of just didn't quite spark. And you kind of go, you're all marvelous. Thank you very much. I need to go to the pub now. But it's true, you know, it can't be that kind of euphoric every night, because it's just human nature. It can't be, because I was in it for like 4.5 years.
Wow.
So I did it a lot.
Yeah.
And if it was euphoric at the end of every show, I mean, like I say, I'd be skinny as a pencil and slightly mad, I think. But I never ever took it for granted. I was always appreciative of it, but because it would be really arrogant to take it for granted. But it wasn't always like the best moment of your life, if is the honest answer.
Yeah. And just quickly about, you mentioned there earlier about actors coming, you know, going from Newcastle to like London drama schools and everything. And funny enough, I had another guest on the show, Laura Elphinstone. She's from Sunderland. She's a Sunderland girl. Sorry,
I think she lives in the corner from me.
Oh, does she now?
I think so. I see her quite a lot at the train station.
Yeah. We worked. Yeah, we worked together at the National Theatre a few years ago, and she's just a gem. She's just fantastic. It was lovely to talk to her. You know, for someone like yourself and Laura, you know, coming to London and sort of make, you know, and you mentioned there, like, you think, oh, everyone from here must be in it already and stuff like that. Of course, that's not true. Everyone's just as nervous as each other. But if anyone's listening to this who's from Tyneside or from the region or anything, what advice would you give them about taking the plunge and moving to London and becoming an actor?
If you can afford to, I don't know how it works now. If you can get a student loan, a train. So the training is probably a lot more advanced, a lot better now than it was when I trained. I just think the experience it gives you, let alone what you might learn technically, I think the experience of doing is invaluable.
Yeah,
it might be no, it's not for everybody. I know a lot of actors who just went straight into working, and they're fantastic actors. But for me, my advice would be to train. you will meet a massive range of people. You will play a massive range of parts that will stretch you, it will make you think about things in a different way that you'd never get cast in professionally, but it doesn't matter because you're at drama school and it's all on the whole behind closed doors. Make a fool of yourself, allow yourself to be vulnerable. Getting it wrong is part of getting it right, which sounds like a cliche, but it's true.
Very true.
And there's no shame in getting it wrong, whatever wrong means. Make an idiot of yourself, make bold choices and get it wrong and discover why they're wrong. It gives you the opportunity to do all of those things. Whereas I think if you're young and you go straight into theatre, you might just take what you were told to do or encouraged to do as the way to do it, and learn and not to challenge stuff or not to bring what you can bring to the table. Because I think if you come out of training, you might have a bit more confidence to say, well, I was thinking it might be like this. And it's not about being bolshy or arrogant. It's just about saying, I've got something to offer as well. And this is my 2 penny worth about what I think, how it could work, you know? So yeah, but go, fucking may go for it. Absolutely give it a go, because the more working class voices we have in theatre and on television, and the better, because I think it's really important. And even though you have a working class voice, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you can't, be in Downton Abbey. Usurp the posh, take their jobs off them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that's a brilliant way of looking at it. And quick shout out to Laura Elphinstone as well. Love your work, Laura. Hope you're well. But yeah, no, that's a brilliant way of looking at it. And I think that's going to really help a lot of people watching and listening to this about that. But just got one more question for you, Deka. This is a finishing question, which I ask every guest. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much for today. I've absolutely loved this talk. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I've seen you on stage, and now talking to you now, it's a real honor for me. So thank you so much for your time. It means the world to me. My pleasure. So the final question for you today, which is a finisher for every guest, is what's been an experience you've had in your career that you're never ever going to forget?
The really easy. It's 2 now. See, I've overthought that.
No, you can say 2. You can say 2 if you
want. One of them was walking around the corner on Broadway from 8th Avenue onto West 46th Street and seeing the billboard for Pitman Painters outside the theatre. I'll never forget that. And going, Christ almighty, I'm doing a play about where I'm from with some of my best friends ever on Broadway. That was one of them. And again, connected to Pitman Painters was probably the curtain call of the first press night at what is now the Dorfman, what used to be the Studio Theatre, whatever it used to be called. It's now called the Dorfman at the National. Which was just, I've never experienced anything like it. What you were talking about audiences getting on their feet at the end of a play. I saw critics standing on their feet. I saw actors who I could only dream of being in the same company as on their feet, just going mad. And it was one of the most, probably the most magical moment of me experience in my career. To see that and to know that we'd achieved that, that was fairly spectacular.
Wow, I can see it now. That must have been quite a moment. That's been quite a
moment. Well, it's just a validation, of not of us as actors or anything, but a bit of that, but just of where we'd all come from and what belief in the story, and doing a play about where you're from and about politics that you're passionate about and about comedy that I really love, and it all coming together and just paying off. It was magic.
Fantastic. And on that note, that's, I think, a fantastic place to end. So guys, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic podcast, and I'll be back very soon. If you just hang on, Deka, I'll finish the recording. I'll say goodbye to you one-to-one. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. I'll be back very soon. And once again, Deka Walmsley, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Pleasure.